God's call. A couple weeks ago, we started a study on Ezra and Nehemiah, but we're not going chapter by chapter. Rather, we're looking at the messages and at some important points that are relevant for us today.
And it seems like that the Bible is full of stories of people who God chose for a particular assignment. Somehow He integrated them in His plan and they played their part, where He played His, and His was a little bit more invisible. So what was the calling of Ezra and what was the calling of Nehemiah?
God's call is a very interesting topic. How do we know if God is calling us? The lesson brings some important questions. Does God call each person for a certain task? Are there criteria that make someone more qualified for certain tasks than others? Are these criteria different in human eyes than in God's? Sometimes God looks for people with certain qualifications. Sometimes He chooses people with no qualifications, so they don't make it about themselves. God's call in our life is a very personal experience. But the lesson focuses more on a certain type of call that is specific for a specific time. The calls for Zerubbabel, for Ezra, for Nehemiah, they were very specific for a certain time in history.
When I was thinking about myself and my life, it was very hard to come up with a definition of what God's call is, or how do I recognize that God has called me for a certain assignment. Nevertheless, when we look at the lives of Ezra and Nehemiah, after the fact, we see that there is a set of skills of character traits, or we see that there is certain positioning in time and space that somehow justifies their calling in that special occasion. Also, we see their fervent prayers. We see their passion for what they can do for God and God's people that just made them the right choice for the role that they took upon. God's call for them was a successful one, wasn't it?
They had to rebuild what was in ruins, physically, as infrastructure, and spiritually. Ezra was willing. He was a leader and he had some special skills, a scribe, a scholar, and teacher. And also, he had devoted himself to the study and observance of the law of the Lord, something that he did and taught for 13 years. Nehemiah also had a heart for God and for the people. He had passion for the cause. But the focus of the lesson is about the timing. Certain events had to happen, and they were there for that. From here, the lesson points that we are also living in a specific prophetic time, and that the times and prophecies for Ezra and Nehemiah, and the ones that led to the birth of the Adventist movement, are even related.
Timing means a lot in God's plan. It's extraordinary how chapter 8 and chapter 9 in Daniel describe a prophecy with peculiar detailed specifics in the timeline of history that came to fulfillment. And the lesson draws our attention to those two prophetic periods of 70 weeks and 2300 days that solidifies our certainty in the capability of God to carry out His plans and His promises. He knows how to make things happen even when He's engaging imperfect beings like us. Simply, Ezra and Nehemiah, and I should say King Cyrus and King Darius and King Artaxerxes, they responded to their call. How interesting. Are we then also part of God's calling of some sort? This is worth thinking about and also probably finding some clues and finding some answers for our personal life.
So we understand about the time, the need, the call. The question coming up is, how does God choose or elect?
Close to the end of the lesson, we come to some challenging verses in Romans chapter 8, verse 28 and 29, and I read, "For those that God foreknew, He He also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. And those he predestined, he also called. And those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified. We hear words like predestined and called and justified and glorified. All of them clearly telling me that God is actively involved in my life. He's involved in my life. He has initiative and he has good intentions for my life. He works in my life and he has already provided for my life. The question is, do I get it? Do I believe it? And would I respond to his call? Aha! Calling. The lesson breaks it down to two types of calling. And the first one is calling for salvation and transformation into the image of Jesus. And the second one is a calling for a specific task.
We are called to live as God created us to live, to be the people that He created us to be. It's a big transformation, dedication, and an exciting adventure. Sometimes God also calls us for certain tasks and specific needs.
When we look into the Bible, finally, we see that some people, and there is a big list of people in the Bible, responded with yes when they were called by God. Others responded with no. And there were those who bargained with God about their calling. And take Moses, for an example. Definitely the message is clear in the Bible. We choose how to respond to God's calling, be it for salvation or for a particular assignment. Ezra and Nehemiah made their choice, and it really made a difference in the life of the Jewish nation. And from there, the way God delivered salvation to the world.
We have a choice, but also a responsibility. What will we do with God's call? We will continue next week with the lesson Facing Opposition.